Hello everyone, today we're here with Dr. Wennie Subramonian and today we're going to be having an interview with a chemical engineer. For those who are watching this who don't know who you are and what you do you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dr. Wennie Subramonian. I'm a senior lecturer in chemical engineering. I'm also the deputy admissions for the department as well as the outreach lead for the department.
As a lecturer at the university, just to share to anyone who might have been lectured by you, what's that experience like here at the University of Manchester?
I think students overall have been very welcoming. So I've been here for about 4 years now. So I started from a smaller cohort from my first job where it's about 50 students, and then coming here became like 100 over students, and seeing students like sitting at a lecture theatre, such a big lecture theatre. Initially it was very daunting because I start to wonder, like, are they able to engage with what I'm delivering? This is such a big class. And I've been trying like different digital innovation tools. It started to build up over the years, and eventually it's what it is today with like a little quiz and a recap and open-ended questions, just to get their attention, get their engagement, and hopefully try to be a bit more personal with them, like going around the room and checking on their work, have a little conversation with them. So let them know that I'm not here to bite. Like, if you have a question, I'm always ready to help, ready to answer. Nothing too small, too big. It's been really great teaching here. Students are very inquisitive. They're very open-minded. They're very forgiving if you make a mistake. So that's really helpful to have students being very supportive like that. Yeah. We have hit the 200 mark now for our first year. Yep. Then it's also quite scary because you're not sure whether you can really create that connection with students, whether they think, I'm just another face in the crowd. What I do want students to take away is that they feel like they do belong here. Like, their contributions do matter. Like, I have students who also presented at national conferences where I took a step back. I said, okay, when it comes to presentation, I said, this is your moment to shine. I'm right here, ready for Q&A. So from somebody who thought that, this is just another research project I need to do just to get a certain grade, to someone who goes, literally just a student this year that say, is there another conference I can sign up to? So that big change in attitude, because they feel like their contributions do matter, which is true. You actually have other academics sitting down, listening to your ideas, listening to your work. So long story short, I think students should really feel that their work matters, not just being in the classroom, but outside the classroom, doing any projects, presenting, sharing, disseminating. Doesn't matter what the level is, your own class, university level, or even national level. They all matter and they're all valid.
In terms of getting to this level, can you talk a little bit about maybe one of the things you're most proud of on your journey to getting to where you are now?
I think in terms of what I'm most proud of would be giving that positive impact, that positive learning experience to my student. I think that has always been at the core of my teaching. I always think it's okay if you come into class not knowing much, but then I hope after my class you get a bit, like at least 50% of what I'm delivering, and all you need to do is just put in the extra 30% or 20%, whatever your final goal is. So hearing sometimes students telling me that the way I teach, the way I convey my message, breaking down complex concepts is something that they can digest. I think that really makes me feel good, very fulfilling. But beyond teaching itself, outside of classroom, I actually want my students to grow in confidence. So some of the things I do is like student partnership projects, one of it being developing outreach projects for community, for underserved communities especially. And I had like students as co-creators. We developed these type of outreach projects. We went out there, we delivered to about 1,000 over participants in total. We went to like Trafford Center, Rochdale Community Center, big events, big sign events like that. And I can see students grow from being a volunteer to speaking up, all the way to actually co-creating an activity with me and delivering. That type of confidence, growth, professional skills development really sits with me. It's really fulfilling to see students advance like that beyond the classroom.
And what about your own research? Is there anything on that kind of side of university that you're quite proud of?
Yeah, so in terms of research, I look more towards engineering education research. So I was once the person doing research in the lab. I was doing photocatalysis to treat wastewater. It's still very exciting to me, but then again, at one point in my career, I realized that my true passion and interest, I know it sounds cliche, but genuinely, it's like a calling. Like, I really like teaching students, especially, like I said, seeing them grow and then trying to find ways to connect with them, letting them know that they can actually overcome any challenges. At the end of the day, STEM students, they're resilient. Women are resilient, especially. Yeah. Yeah. But students in general, I think, are very resilient. They just need somebody to pat them on the shoulder a little bit when they do a good job, remind them that they can do it, a little pep talk. So in terms of engineering education, again, one of it being outreach projects. I developed that with students, and right now I'm expanding on its work, where I can hopefully deliver to teachers from communities so they can actually deliver sessions to their own students without me having to be there. The other project I'm also looking at is using digital tools to build inclusive learning. So AI being the hot topic right now, right? So I'm looking at how I can incorporate AI to create more accessible learning for students, enhancing their learning journey, and basically like having AI also as a Socratic tutor. I'm still there, but in the event, if you want an extra support, AI is there, and how can we use that? So that's the other project I'm looking at.
Was there, and there isn't always one, but was there a moment in your life where you realised you wanted to pursue a life of science?
Ooh. I'm not artsy, I'm not creative, so that route for me was unfortunately ruled out.
It was a process of elimination.
Yes, it was like a self-elimination. Like, oh. Then when it came to biology, for some reason, I can't tap into memorizing things. I don't work very well with memorizing. I'm better at understanding application. I start thinking, okay, what else is there beyond the conventional routes? And then there's chemical engineering. So I looked at it, and it's all about application of maths, but not core pure maths, which is something I shy away as well. Like, all those Navier-Stokes, Fourier's, like, oh. But then applying them was intriguing for me. So I thought, okay, maths is something I like, and I enjoy chemistry and physics. So then it all ties together, like, okay, which discipline I could go to, and chemical engineering was one of the ones that really draw me. Also, it's very diverse in terms of chemical engineering, because we can think of any industry, anything from food and beverage to personal care products to pharmaceutical. So it's not just the conventional oil and gas, for example. So I thought that's such a diverse field, and the contribution that chemical engineers can do would be like looking at sustainability impact. So for example, how I can reduce the amount of waste, reduce the amount of fossil fuel, how can I design a process that's safe? These are the aspects that really draw to me, and I was like, right, chemical engineering it is.
I keep talking about this journey that you're taking through science, but I feel like that's the best way to explain it, right? But during this journey, did you come across any obstacles that might be similar to some obstacles that we're facing today? And we'd be really interested to know how you navigated them.
The challenge is still the same, or like you said, the obstacles are still quite similar, is that there's always this underrepresentation in gender and ethnicity. And so I come from Malaysia, and even though I'm in the UK, I can see both countries have similar obstacles. And I thought to myself, when I'm a lecturer now, when I'm a senior lecturer now, what I can actually do, play a small part in bridging or reducing that gap in engineering education, or STEM, not just engineering education. So recently, this year, I'm actually starting to create this series of Women in STEM professional skills development workshops. The idea that I want to do is, it's just not a one-off thing. It's going to be a series of workshops to empower women, especially, and underrepresented groups. So the idea for this type of workshop is, again, it's about like equity, bringing us up to a certain level. Hopefully that's something you could put in your CV. And on top of that, it's actually delivered by a female speaker. So Mrs. Rachel Piper, so she's the first one coming in. I have been in talks with 2 to 3 more speakers that we hope to bring in the next academic year. And that helps hopefully empower students, inspire students, and also to prepare them better for applying for placement or graduate employability.
Brilliant. I reckon we'll keep an eye out for that and make sure to keep sending out reminders and things like that to our members as well. You're recently leading the Green Together project. Is that what you were talking about earlier? Or is this something new?
So actually the Green Together was a one-off event organized by the Faculty of Science and Engineering Social Responsibility team. And they'll send out this call to academics, to volunteers, like, who wants to do outreach, deliver an activity or more than one activity. So that was my first taste of outreach at the university and at Manchester itself. Ever since then, I've never looked back. So at the time, I actually delivered a colleagues activity. So I adapted that and deliver it. And once that activity was done, I was like, whoa, I really like it. I really like giving back to the community, not just, of course, to my own students as well, but going beyond the university, reaching out to a wider community by saying, look, engineering or STEM, it's accessible to all. How can I make that message clear? Like, it doesn't matter what your background is, whether you're a first generation young person going to university, whether you may not have role models who are doing STEM field. Come to these events, we can share with you like you can do it as well, and how I can make those materials accessible to them and share it through outreach. So hopefully that inspires especially younger people on sustainability theme education as well as STEM theme education. Yeah. So it all started from Green Together.
Now, you said the Green Project was your first project of this kind all the way up till now.
Yeah.
I want to ask, have you got a favourite project that you've got?
I think the Reason one was one of my favorites. So it was at Trafford Centre, which is it's called the Fun Lab. So I think that was my favorite because we were in a shopping mall, and me, colleagues, and volunteers, we took up one big floor at the food court area. The crowd was just coming in and out non-stop, and I think they did a little head count on how many people actually joined us that day. It's in the thousands. I thought that was very impactful, and we had even families coming up to us saying that, oh, we were at this particular outreach event that the university hosted. We remember you, and we're like, that's good, because we made a long-lasting impression, and they were bringing young kids as well. And we're like, oh yeah, now check out the other stall because they've been with us. Yeah, check out the other stall. It was just amazing. I think seeing how engaged the kids were. Very, very young kids, anywhere between like 5 till 12. And then you also get to see some teenagers coming in. Hopefully that gives them a little sense of, oh, this might be something I could pursue as a career. Yes, granted, we make it like, in a very kidsy manner, like there were dinosaur stickers and drawings for the young ones. Yeah. There were also activities that were catered to the more older audience. And hopefully that grabs their attention and let them think that, maybe this is something they could consider, for further education. I guess the feeling at the end of each of these events was that it's very exhausting, because you imagine talking for, let's say the event opens from 10 to 4. So you're talking for that long, or 6 hours, but then non-stop 6 hours, plus setting up and then setting down your activity stand. And it's just manic. Yeah, it just keep going on and on and on. But it's also a sense of like empowering, because you see, I see my own students, someone who is very shy, who is very new to outreach, just became like this one woman show or one person show, just delivering everything on her own. I'm like, oh, okay, do you need me? She's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay. Yeah, like it's just that big transformation you can see in your own student volunteers, and I think that's very enriching, very fulfilling also for me.
You were talking about how the cohorts are getting bigger and bigger, and of course it's a known truth that jobs are getting harder and harder to get. Have you got any other advice, especially to our members, as to maybe what else they could do to kind of give them a boost up in the job market? Yeah,
I think one thing is, we talked about going for these professional skills workshop. It is very useful, not just to put in your CV, but the networking you can get out of it. If you have like industry guest speakers coming to deliver lectures, just go for them and then speak to the industry speakers. So we just had one last week where it was very impromptu. The speaker said, we don't officially advertise for jobs because of the size of their company and all that, and based on project. The speaker actually welcomed CVs, like, this is my email, pop me your CV. Once the project comes in, that's where they start recruiting. So I think when you have this type of networking opportunity, it's important to just put yourself out there. It might seem daunting to students at times, thinking like, oh, what should I ask? But you have to see from the industry speaker perspective. They don't expect you to ask questions that somebody who has been working for 5 years asked. The other bit would be careers fair. They do help. Joining this type of careers fair and putting your CV, make an impression. LinkedIn, update your LinkedIn profile, shine it out, make sure it's polished, it's up to date. You may not be able to put everything in there because that should go in your CV, but something should be there. If you've been doing extracurricular activity, like being a WISE member or community, or on the committee as well, just volunteer as much as you can, because you'd be surprised, the opportunity that comes along the way when you're doing extracurricular activity. Oh yes, site visits. So it depends on, of course, your discipline, not just industry speakers coming, but you going to, on-site visit. That actually helps. So for example, from a chemical engineering perspective, We do have annual site visits to, for example, like a pharmaceutical plant, and you'll be able to say you actually seen a real size, reactor or distillation column, because not many people have seen that. When you're at site visit, the amount of questions you can ask your tour guide, which is the industry who's leading the way, the amount of questions you can ask is just endless. And like I said, they take any questions, no matter how small, how big they are, and they know you're students. You're supposed to ask those questions when you're a student. Maybe when you're working 5 years and you start asking these type of questions, you're like, oh, right, yeah. So student is like one of the best times to learn, because everybody understands that this is your first time. You're building your experience, you're building your knowledge. No question too small, no question too big.
You should take advantage of that.
Definitely. You're protected.
No judgment.
Yeah, no judgment. Exactly, no judgment. Probably this comes from a perspective of being a woman. Don't be afraid to take up space. Don't be afraid to speak up. Even if you're in a room full of somebody who's much more senior than you, or a more daunting situation or intimidating situation, don't feel afraid. Just take up space, just own it. Your contributions, your thoughts, they do matter. They will be valued. So yeah, take up space.
Thank you so much, Wennie, for speaking to us. This was an interview with a chemical engineer.
You're most welcome.